All right, guys, today we got Jamie Lankford here, and everybody kind of knows you at this point. PFI Speed.
Yeah.
I think our crossover audience is pretty much 100% across the board.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were just at World Cup. It was a weekend for a week, 2 weeks, a month.
Yeah.
How long would you say World Cup was?
I felt like I was there for a couple months.
It feels like that sometimes. You get like lost in the swirl of and the prep and then the de-prep and World Cup will probably
the World Cup hangover.
It'll probably be lingering with you for a little bit.
It is.
The car will be a reminder of World Cup.
That one race.
I know what it's like. I've also wadded up my race car.
Yep.
I've also been on fire too. So you know we can really connect on this.
We can compare notes here.
Everybody has to check off those boxes a little bit on their car.
It's not if, it's always when.
Yeah.
Like you do this enough, something's gonna happen. You know, just got to be prepared for it.
I was talking to somebody that rides a motorcycle, and they're like, "Yeah, every 50,000 miles, I just, I know there's going to be an incident."
Yeah.
Kind of like with cars. I don't know, maybe depending on the car, every 100 passes, every 300, something like that.
Yep. And I mean, it can happen to you in a 12-second index car. Stuff happens.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
One bolt, one this, one that,
Where did your car actually hit? Like, what kind of mile an hour? What kind of, like, where on the track was it?
It was just past the quarter, and it probably slowed up to 145, 150 when it did the first hit.
Yeah.
And the second hit, it was probably down to 45, 50 mile an hour.
Okay.
It scrubbed off most of it by the second hit.
Yeah, because it's always interesting because, the car may have been going 170, but when the impact actually happens is a whole different story.
That was actually the personal best mile an hour in the car on that pass.
Oh, really?
It went 197 on that one.
What a time to do it,
We
right?
weren't trying to do that.
197?
197.
Wow.
Yeah.
Frick.
We weren't trying to do that with that engine.
Mile an hour is so interesting because, as you know, it's really just a math equation. That's just showing the horsepower. We're not talking really aerodynamics as much.
Yeah.
And, aerodynamics, of course, a little bit, but more just horsepower.
Yeah, the mile an hour will show your horsepower. Your ET will show your actual track progress, how you made the pass. It's gonna mile an hour if you got the motor trucking.
I'd love to see the math equation on that one with, what was it, 20, what's that car, 2,500 pounds? 2,400?
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Makes power.
That thing is making a ton of power through a 4-cylinder, what is that?
It's a 1.920 liter.
Yeah. Do you guys build all those yourself? Do you build them all yourself?
Yeah, I build them all myself, and that's kind of where we're at with a lot of stuff. We're working with 25, 30-year-old cast blocks. That engine. So we had the GSRs, which are the stronger cast block of those.
Yeah.
I had 2 of those, and then I had the 1LS as like the emergency engine. The GSRs, we actually found a parts problem. So the first motor, we had an oil pressure issue, pulled it out through the match, everything the same. They got built next to each other, same machining. And then that one through a rod. So then we went back and had time to inspect the first one.
Yeah.
Found the bigger problem. That stuff wasn't in the LS. So we're like, okay, we just have to turn it down. So we were shooting to go like 182 to 184 mile an hour because that's where the LS blocks will stay together.
At that kind of horsepower.
Yeah, that kind of power. Just like you were talking, the mile an hour shows the power. So we've got a lot of data and know that's where they live because we pushed that before and we found that breaking point. So
you know where it is.
Yeah. And I clicked in third and it hazed the tire for a second. And I said, well, it's still alive. Let's see. It feels a little stronger than it should be.
Do you have like a scramble in there or something?
No, I don't have a scramble. It was just, we pulled a bunch of timing out. We pulled a bunch of boost out of it. And it's still just with the air and everything, it wasn't enough.
It's so hard to judge what World Cup is going to be for air.
Yep. And then our big thing is like the West Coast racing versus the East Coast racing. Like in Colorado, we had it was kind of a rough year with losing Vandermeer. Like we didn't test my car at all this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, where did I even see it out?
So we started doing our own events out there.
Yep.
So we kind of kicked that off this year. We did one in Pueblo.
What do you guys call those? The
PFI Speed Fest.
Okay, yeah.
So, and those have been great. Those are a blast. And we're going to keep doing more of those this year.
And it's cool because that's an event out of necessity.
Yeah.
Like you guys needed a place for people to race and your customers.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, like, we started doing this with PSCA years ago. We started running our own classes because there was just no sanctioning body, no races, no nothing. So we jumped in with them and started doing it with them, and we built it and grew it real big. You know, we had, 20 some cars in the pro class. We had the sport class was, upwards of 30 cars sometimes for like the 880 to like 950 cars.
That's a healthy race turnout.
Yeah, with just front-wheel drive and some all-wheel drive imports.
That's awesome. That's a healthy turnout for events. Because if you go to enough events, you see the turnouts of 30 cars for a class is not super common.
Yeah, especially with like front-wheel drive imports on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And so we got that built up, and then we lost Bandimere, and so everybody was kind of lost. So we got with Pueblo. They got us one date. And then we got with Kearney out in Nebraska where we go on race week, and they gave us a date. And so those, like, it wasn't really a test for my car. Like we
had to go compete.
We turned it way down, and I couldn't work on the car because I was running the event. So it was just turn the car down. I had one of my crew guys just turning the car around and servicing it and turn it down and don't break it. We didn't try anything. We didn't test anything, just put known good turned down tunes in it. So we literally had no testing all year until we came to FL2K.
Yep.
And then we didn't do so hot there. We got one qualifier that I turned it down because just didn't know what it was going to do.
Yeah, you just took it to sea level.
Yep. And then, turned it up and it broke a shift fork, like something we've never broke before. Like it was overdue. It's been in the car for 4 years.
That's such a weird thing to break, because does that even break with power or just with
it's
use?
it's just wear and tear.
Just use
like
item.
It's literally just a tab factory welded onto the side of a rod, and it just literally broke the weld off.
Classic.
So, we pulled it apart and fixed it in an hour, but then we never got another qualifier, and we were number 17.
Reminds me of my FL2K where I'm sitting on the gas, just bumped in, and then the gas pedal snaps off.
Yep.
And it's just like,
you feel so helpless
because it's just like, it's not like a hard part really broke.
Yeah.
It's like nothing, but it's just something. It's so annoying. It's the worst things to break when they're just like
when they break big, like you understand, okay, something happened. We could have solved this, but it would have taken a lot. But those little things, you're like, man, I could have just changed that 6 months ago.
Jim at World Cup, his trans brake button fell loose.
Yeah.
While he was on the trans brake.
Yeah.
It didn't do it when he was reversing out of his pit.
Yeah, he drove it all the way up there. He backed out of his pit.
And then you get on the trans brake, and then it comes loose. It's like
the worst time for it to happen.
Always. I don't know.
Yep.
And it's the littlest things. The car's fine. Drove it down the track.
Yeah.
It's
just couldn't do the most important piece of racing.
Yeah.
Staging the car.
The 20-cent parts.
Yeah.
The wire, the Deutsch connector.
Yeah.
Not 20 cents, probably $10, but.
Yeah. I mean, you can get those on Temu now, so you could probably get it for 20 cents.
I was about to say, you're probably looking at wiring on your car, so you're probably.
Yeah. I am. That is one of the things I'm looking at.
You're probably shopping for some wiring. I saw the engine bay. It was lacking a couple wires after
a little crispy.
The fire.
Yep. Yeah. To take the top half of the engine out, we had to undo like 2 bolts and 2 A-in lines and a pair of dikes to cut a couple wires.
Yeah.
And then it just exited very easy.
I saw that. So otherwise, though, the front end didn't seem crazy damaged.
No. So my body guy already came and looked at it. The frame rails all to the naked eye look fairly good. There's like couple pieces on like we call it the compliance bushing. It's like the back piece of the lower control arm where it attaches to the unibody. That's bent, but the body doesn't look bent. Like just some stuff like that.
Yeah.
The weight plate, we're just busy. We're shop and we're racers and we do YouTube. So there's always that stuff you wanted to do to your car that you never got to. One of the things we never got to was bars from the strut tower down to the weight plate. And honestly, not having those on yet saved the car probably. because when the weight plate hit, it folded it down and it just ripped the sheet metal that was on the front of the frame horns that it was welded to off.
Yeah.
So probably saved the car, but that's all stuff we're going to do with it now.
It's interesting you say that because it's similar with like the F bodies where people do like a tube front end.
Yep.
But everybody I've heard who, you know, noses them into the wall or even comes down from a hard wheelie, they're like, once you bend that thing, it's like, it's cooked. I've talked to a couple of people, they're like, yeah, the factory stuff would probably not have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can like cut it and kind of bend it back and it saves the strut towers from moving. And
factory does things pretty well.
On mine, it saved it, you know. I'm still hopefully able to use the same car.
That would be ideal. Yeah. And it just touched the rear just a little bit.
It was mostly tire, but it got the back quarter panel a little bit, but the body back there isn't bad at all.
It's like funny, but not that our cars had very similar.
Yeah.
Like when I bumped the nose, I was like, darn. But then when it like snapped back and hit the rear, I was like, because that's like where it's like, darn it.
That's the hard one to fix.
Yeah, you can't just like put a new.
Yeah, you can't just bolt a new one on.
Yeah.
You know, a fender, a bumper, whatever. You can just bolt a new one on.
And they're readily available.
Yeah.
You could
quarter panel, you gotta do some work. You got spot welds, you got all that stuff.
Exactly. So what's the plan on that then? Are you just gonna try to pull it and just?
So the rear quarter's pretty good. So we started pulling it all apart before we came down here. The body guy's gonna take it, put it on the frame rack, and just check everything. Because first of all, you know, we're going almost 200. We got to make sure that's good. Yeah. So if that's good, then just slowly rebuild it, you know, as I build funds up and stockpile parts again.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a lot of stuff different with it. You know, we felt like our safety game had stepped up a lot. And I mean, out of the like 45 cars that were in our class, there's probably only 5 of us that have fire suppression in them. I feel like that has grown immensely since this. You know, there's a bunch of the guys in the class have hit me up asking about fire systems, and I really hope it's an eye-opener. You know, there was another guy in our class wrecked last December, and he got burned, and that's what got me to start putting my visor down.
Yeah,
you know?
I know. I said that you had your visor up, and I was probably thinking of somebody else because most people do that. But you did have your visor down, didn't have the head sock on, which I'm not as stickler as a head sock guy because, you know, there's eyeballs are pretty important. Your neck can get a little crispy.
And the ironic part about the head sock is, you know, they implemented that new rule. I got one. I threw it in my trailer. That morning, I was like, oh, I didn't use it yesterday. Yeah. So I threw it on the floor of the car and got up to the lanes, and they rushed us real quick. You know, we were
You sit there for 2 hours and then they rush you.
Well,
it's crazy.
So they called our class. I hooked up the smart car, and as I'm backing out, they said lanes 3 and 4 suit up, and I was like, wow, they're ahead of schedule, so we're behind.
Yeah.
So get up there, and they're like, you got to get ready, and it just wasn't part of my normal routine, so I missed it.
I hate that. I hate being rushed in. Yep. I'll sit in my car for 45 minutes rather than being rushed.
Yeah, and that's something like that's a lot of what we do, like with our channel and with our shop and stuff, and our events is trying to get the next generation of racer into it, teaching them stuff and, you know, how to stage your car, how to, you know, go through tech, all that stuff. And that's the first thing I tell everybody. Don't let anybody rush you through your safety. You know, once you're getting ready, that's your job, is to make sure you're ready.
Yeah. I'll sit there before I pull into the burnout box for a minute if I'm, you know, gearing up. It shouldn't take more than a minute to get in your car.
No, but
realistically,
you know, don't skip one step.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't reach my one clip on my neck device, or, oh, I can't reach one glove. Like, that's the day something's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
I put a head sock in my car, and I didn't put it on. It's the one day I lit on fire.
Or like the classic, oh, I just didn't have time to put on my race shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just left my regular shoes on.
You're in your Crocs and your, you know.
Shout out Wyatt. But yeah, I mean, that's the annoying thing. And I always think about that. I'm like, the one time I don't pull the harnesses tight is when I'm going to need to have pulled them tight.
Exactly.
Even when I was racing Chip, I kept like spiraling because, you know, it's a 9-second car, 950 car. But I have a Hans device. I have all this good equipment. So I'm like, am I going to be the guy that wrecks a 9-second car with his Hans device sitting next to him?
That me and my wife have that talk all the time because I have my Integra. It's like a 10.0 car.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're a little too reckless in that car. Like, that's the car. It doesn't drive very straight. I just, power through it, muscle through it. And she's like, that's the car you're going to get hurt in because you don't respect it.
Yeah.
Like, you got to put your neck stuff on in that car. You've got to do all the same stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I probably should.
Well, and like I keep it all in one bag.
Yeah,
so
it's always with me. It's the same stuff you wear.
It's in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being that guy that wrecks his slower car.
Yeah.
And his gear is just sitting there.
It's like, sitting in it.
Yeah, you kind of deserve to be ridiculed a little bit. You know,
yeah.
I get it, and it's one of those deals where even like, somebody like Garrett who has 20 layer suits, everything, and then he drives like a 12-second car down the track, and it's like, well, this is my only suit.
Yeah,
it's just a 20 layer.
I mean, we showed up to La Mullets, and there's the group of drag racers, Lyle and all those guys. They're in 20 layer suits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you guys are gonna be hot tonight.
And like Alex Choi's in like a single layer. I saw him walking around versus like, the pro drivers are in like custom fitted suits. I'm like, oh yeah, you could.
Yeah, you can tell.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. And I mean, if you got the nice suit that fits you nice,
you might as well.
not to wear it. And they have all the sponsors on them.
Yeah.
So as nice as the single layer jacket is.
Yeah. It's comfort over what you need.
Yeah. So I guess back to testing. You hadn't tested your car.
No, we hadn't tested it all year. We just did those events, came to FL2K, and so when we got to World Cup, we struggled. Like it was a struggle. Made the first pass, oil pressure, swapped the motor. So by the time we got to that third qualifier, because we were only getting 3, we also lost one. We were the only class to lose one, I think. And
I think Jason Miller might have been a little mad at your class.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of, we're always the first ones to lose a qualifier, and it's understandable, but it sucks. I totally see both sides of it, and so we got that other motor in, we turned it down, but we had no info. We had no data all year. It was kind of a guess. You look at data and you go, I can pull 7-8 pounds of boost out of it, and I can pull 6-7 degrees out. It should pull 300 horsepower. That's what we did.
But your only data was getting it on the 2-step.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just like looking at logs and that we have from the years and going, okay, so this boost and this timing at mile an hour, this, okay, the air's this much better, let's pull some more. But it's a fresh motor. It was a fresh head. That motor was sealed up and made power.
Yeah.
And it was lower settings than the last motor, and it mile an hour, 8-9 mile an hour more.
She was kind of a factory freak for a second there.
Yeah, it was.
Just for a brief blip in its lifetime.
Yeah.
It spent
probably
100,000 miles being like grandma's motor, and then
I got a hold of it.
Just a little blip. Because it's funny, like the GSR motors, like they probably spent their life being thrashed on.
Yeah.
But the LS motors are probably like in the most basic of cars possible.
Exactly. So they were driving to the grocery store and church most of their life.
Which might make them better, I guess.
Yeah.
Which might make them a little less worn out.
Yep. The only problem, though, once you get to like our power level, the LS, the webbing on the block is the big difference. They're a lot weaker there. So that's why they break. So like it broke at the main studs where they go into the block. So it literally just ripped the crank out of it.
Yeah.
So like when it broke, it was actually like a money shift. So that's what caused the accident, honestly. So the block disintegrated, the crankshaft came down, the crank was on the clutch, the transmission dropped, the axles binded.
So it just locked up the motor.
Locked up, and it locked the front tires. So with our weight bias on the cars, like it's upwards of 90% front weight. So even with the Active Aero came up.
I think people need to realize that. Upwards of 90% front
90 plus
on the front.
Yeah.
So you're talking 2,000 pounds almost on the front half of the car to like right behind the driver.
You put it on scales, the back tires weigh 200 a piece and under.
Wow.
So jacking the car up, you have to be very careful. Like, I don't know if you've seen pictures of my car on a lift.
They were scary.
We sit the car all the way back. Like, the front tire is in between the two posts because the back weighs nothing.
Yeah. But also on a car like that, you don't really need a lift.
No.
Like everything's pretty accessible right from the front.
It really is.
Nothing's really goes underneath the car besides like maybe some fuel rails, some fuel lines.
Well, and the fuel's all up front anyways. So there's nothing to the back. My shifter, because it's just a shaft.
You have to do like a brake line maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool. It's funny that works like that. It's like real race car, but not. Yeah. But it is a real race car, but also
it's backwards.
Yes. Because that's like real race car shit is you don't work on them on a lift. Like Eagle is designed not to work on a lift.
Yeah. Projects. Yeah. That's how you do it.
And they're designed like that because you have to be able to work on them not
you're not at the shop. Yeah. You look at most race teams, they don't have lifts in their shop. They just pull their trailer in their shop and they work on their car like they're at the racetrack.
Well, they have to have everything in the trailer to be able to work on the car, so you might as well just work from the trailer.
Yeah, then you don't have to double up on everything.
Yeah, it's cool seeing like, John Force's facility where it's just like trailer. Yeah. And they don't have like tools in the facility.
It's just in the trailers.
Yeah. The only tools are like to work on the trailers.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. And you guys kind of have to emulate.
Yeah, we do a lot of the same stuff. So like our trailers, like we do have spare motors, we have, spare transmission, spare sensors, fuel lines, fittings, all that stuff, head gaskets, rods, pistons. And especially like, in Colorado, we race half the year. So we're snowbirds. We come down here most of the winter and leave our stuff here. So when I drive my stuff down here, I have to have everything to be able to work on it and keep it going all winter in the trailer with it. So.
And so I guess on a deal like that too with spare stuff, how has that changed over the last 8 years of acquiring and finding those spare stuff? So for people that don't know, PFI is Parts Finder
International.
Yeah. How has the parts finding been? Because those are mostly stock things that you're finding.
It's getting a little rough. And that's kind of the balancing act right now. Like to me, this was a big eye opener on the technology of these cars and the turbos and the fuel injection and everything has advanced so much that we're still using those 25, 30-year-old cast blocks. We're making 300 to 500 more horsepower in the last 3 years.
But even the transmission. Yeah. So it's how factory is the transmission?
The transmission, the only factory piece you're using is the outer case.
Okay.
That's it. So it's a billet bell housing, complete new gear set, new shift selector. There's aftermarket forks and everything for them. So it's like some bearings, the clutch fork, and the outer case.
Interesting.
And that's on the 4-speed like B series H pattern.
So they've done a pretty good job at tossing all the OEM shit.
The sequentials, like the Quaife sequentials that a lot of people are using in the K series, they're even an aftermarket outer case.
Oh, so they're just
you're not reliant on stock parts anymore.
That's cool. You kind of have to get to that point, and even you guys have to get to a point.
And that's where like billet blocks and everything's coming into play. They're the design flaws that aren't there on that cast motor that was supposed to make 110 horsepower have been fixed in that. They're readily available. Parts Finders International, we had, stacks of them. We had shelves full of blocks. Yeah. And over the years, we've sold them all and used them all. And they're hard to come by. To do one GSR block, you're about halfway to a billet block. By the time you buy a core, sleeve it, do the machine work, you're halfway to a billet block.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of my race program was I have a lot of this stuff. So I didn't have to spend my budget into a billet block. We had a plethora of it.
But now
it's just gotten scarce, and it's like
fewer.
Yeah, and it's a lot of those blocks you find little defects and little problems that after they've been used over the years.
Well, the problem with a billet is we saw with like Kyle, he still needed a spare bullet.
Yep.
To keep with him,
and that's the billet block isn't a save all.
No, you're still going to hurt a piston. You're still going to
you can still throw a rod out of them. You can still do all that stuff.
Especially the nitrous cars are probably tearing up pistons.
Yep. And my thing is just safety-wise and availability-wise, I want to use a billet block. It turns it into a 4-bolt main. Mm-hmm. It will keep – that was the problem with mine. The crank broke out of the block, and it turned into a transmission fell, axles bind up, all that stuff. if I can keep the crankshaft in it and I throw a rod out of it, safety-wise, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
It'll save you from wrecking the car, hopefully save the fire, because the fire wasn't fuel. The fuel tank is still intact.
It was
the
oil.
Fuel lines are all intact. It was oil and the fuel that was in the oil. Mm-hmm. And it's a mechanical pump, so the fuel quit pumping immediately.
Well, there's a lot of flammable fluids in the front of a car that people don't realize. Trans fluid is fairly flammable, especially automatic trans fluid, at least. Like in my car, that's just super flammable.
Yep. Oil's obviously flammable. That was a big fireball.
Especially if you put some methanol in your oil as well. That doesn't help. If your oil has ingested a little methanol.
Yeah.
And you run your car in M1, right?
It's M1 C85 mix.
Oh, okay.
So
interesting. Why did you mix them?
We were out of fuel system on the M1. So the C85 kind of gives you back some of your fuel system. So a little higher EGTs, but get some of the fuel system back without having to do a whole lot more fuel system. Because it's already a, mechanical pump, 2 sets of, 2200 cc injectors.
I've done a bit of fuel mixing, and I never really enjoy it that much because I'm always a little nervous about
ours isn't bad. Like it's a pretty simple science. We're 50-50.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not hard. It's not like I've watched Clay Milliken sit there and mix his fuel. That's important. Like ours, if I'm off a quarter of a gallon, it's not going to kill
because they can only be 90%.
Something like
nitro.
that. I don't remember.
It has to be like 10% something else, something weird like that.
Yeah, and they're scientific with it.
Yeah.
So, and no, there was no nitro in my car. I've seen that a lot. It was like to blow it apart like that, there had to be nitro.
People are saying there's nitro.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Those cars would probably be pretty stupid on nitro with some nitro in there. Yeah. Even if you could put like 10 or 15%.
I'd love to try it.
Would probably be pretty wild. But again, the car has to hold together with the power it can make now. Yeah. So, like, if some of these cars can make enough power to break the motor, you don't really need nitro.
Yeah. That's the problem. Like, we all need to, my program's going more towards not making more power, short tracking better. Because that's the big struggle on the front-wheel drive car. We have mile an hour, everything else that makes our power. Mm-hmm. But our short track, we're wrong-wheel drive. It doesn't work the same. So just getting the short tracks better and better,
You guys seem very sensitive to prep also.
Yeah.
Like if the starting line's too tight, cars won't even be able to pull into the beams, and they'll just bog right out of the hole.
Yep.
I think that's
it's such a fine line. It's such a fine line. And one thing I've done with mine, because a lot of the time, if you can leave the line, you can win the race because the other guy's going to bog.
Yeah.
So mine, we've kind of suffered on the short track to just let it spin a little bit, and I grab it with the traction control just so that it leaves every time.
Yep.
Because if you can win 40% of the races just on being able to leave.
What are you using for? What parameters are you using for traction control? Are you using axle speed?
Front wheel speed and rear wheel speed. So I have an ABS ring on the front axle and then a 60-tooth reluctor wheel on the back wheel.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know if there was something in the diff.
Yeah, no, it's all just on the CV axle. Mm-hmm. So it's just 50-tooth ABS ring up front.
Oh, that's cool.
And then 60-tooth on the back. But a lot of the cars that we tune, they have just the factory front wheel speed, so it's just a 4-pulse, and then rear we read off the wheel studs or whatever.
Yeah, whatever back.
It's just the more resolution, the better.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and some ECUs can't even handle that kind of resolution though, which is why a lot of people end up with a traction control box.
Yeah,
is because a lot of ECUs can't interpolate that type of data.
And now it's with our stuff, ECUs are so readily available that it's that's our thing. We work with a lot of guys that are just getting into it. So my car was always kind of our test dummy. So we've always done it with the least amount of stuff, and we've done it a bunch of different ways. We've treated my car as we don't have good wheel speed sensors. We need to do different traction control strategy. We don't have this, we don't have that, because then it moves on to our customer cars that we're tuning, because we've got to learn that too.
Well, that's kind of how you want it to be. Either a shop has a in-house car, or they have a customer that's prepared to be the in-house car.
Yep.
Induction, they always have an induction car where they learn a lot of things on it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can test all the stuff that you don't want to test on somebody else's car and, waste their money or break their stuff. You can go outside the box.
So moral of the story is buy your parts or get your tuning from somebody who has a shop car.
Yeah.
Because, even like a Motion Raceworks, they have LaSala's car or Jim's car. It's like, you want a car that they've tried these things on.
And like our stuff, nobody's reinventing the wheel. Like most of the stuff has been done or something like it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go completely out of the box and do something completely in left field because that's the problem is parts availability and all that stuff. Somebody else has already gone through, like the problems I just had. Somebody else went through them, but there's parts available to not have it happen again. Like you look at Bradley Dillon. That was the life I almost tried leading.
I have on here.
Yeah.
Neon.
Yep.
I have it on here.
That was...
Sorry, it's the Srt4.
Yeah, that was one of the lives I almost led. Like, I still have them. They're great street cars. I love them. But going to that next level, to me, that would have just been immensely hard.
Oh, yeah. It's a painful trail to walk down.
Yeah.
It's a tough path.
Yeah, because 90% of his parts... He can't borrow from somebody. Mm-hmm. I break something, I don't have it. I can walk through the pits and beg, borrow, and steal whatever I need because somebody else is using the same thing or close enough.
Ish. Yeah. I mean, even like, you look at somebody like Miles who didn't have the parts, but he was able to fix his car there.
Exactly. And he didn't have, like Bradley has to bring absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to have a spare piston for him. Nobody's going to have a spare axle. Nobody's going to have anything, even his wheels, different lug pattern, for that size.
I think of that car like that motor is like the big block of the class.
Yeah.
Because it's big.
And I don't think I haven't seen a whole lot of engine problems from him. He had some transmission problems, but he was pushing the Liberty farther than anybody's really pushed it.
Yeah.
And now he switched to the K transmission and now he's just working through some little bugs, but I mean, he reset the record, the mile an hour record, and everything.
Curious on weight-wise if that thing can get down to as light as the Hondas.
He's done a lot of work to get it there.
Yeah.
There's not much neon left.
You probably have to use a Sawzall quite a bit to get a neon that light.
Yeah. Yeah,
domestic vehicles
they're hefty.
Tend to have some layers to them.
Yeah, they're hefty.
Yeah, especially the neon. I mean, I had one for a stint, and I could tell it was not the most elegant, lightweight machine.
The thing that always got me with them was the crank windows in the back seat.
So funny.
That's nobody understood why. And I'm like, they just didn't want it. They had the stuff. Why make it two options?
Yeah. Like what car has a mix of
electric windows and crank windows?
Yeah. It almost seems like different doors are in the back.
Yeah.
Like, oh, were those off a base model back there?
They are.
Yeah.
So like mine got backed into one time. We had to put new doors on it. I just went and got black doors off of a base model. They bolt right on. It's just a molding that 3M tapes on. Is the only difference.
Well, there's even some wild people that race the earlier neons.
Yeah, the 1Gs.
That's a next level wild.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit higher level of wild. But it is weird that the class, speaking of the neon, the class is mostly Hondas, even though there's other options for front-wheel drive.
That's what the parts are available for.
But, like, there's an LS front-wheel drive. There is not talking to Honda LS, there's an actual LS4 front-wheel drive.
Yep.
There is, Zach with the
Taurus.
The Taurus, who will hopefully eventually have that thing out.
Yeah.
But
he's getting close. I think I saw him putting rotating assembly together.
That's a big motor.
It is.
V6 front-wheel drive deal.
It is a big motor. He's kind of, he's limited on turbo. I don't know how that's going to do, but, in gearing, with his torque and everything and the transmission might be a little funky.
Yep.
Like, he's going down that same road as Bradley. You've got something different. You have to be prepared by yourself all the time. The rest of us can't give a lot of help parts-wise.
No. Maybe transmission because he's using like a K-series transmission.
So it's the same thing that Bradley did.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, that at least gives you a little bit.
Yep. But it's like everything else with the car, you're on your own.
Yeah, it's all you. But then there's also the Ecotech, which is... They're actually pretty known to be good.
Front-wheel drive back in the day, that was one of the killer motors.
I think it's like the fastest four-cylinder record, right?
Yeah.
Is it
there's a couple in Brazil still going right now.
There's like a Pro Mod Ecotech motor. It's weird that there's not like a more mixed basket, but again, just parts availability. But it kind of hurts as a fan a little bit because like I want to see the diversity of the class.
They all honestly, the cars all look the same. They're just painted different. Or wrapped different.
They're all like Hondas for the most part.
Yep.
Either
got a hatch or a coupe.
Or a coupe, yeah. But then there was also the one Nissan last year, but I don't think it was there this year.
And that thing's fast.
Was that a KA? Or an SR?
It's an SR, I think.
SR, yeah. So then there's the front-wheel drive SRs, and they make power too. But again, it's like, you just don't see them.
And I mean, he like, it wasn't, nobody counted it. It wasn't official from what I remember. At a test day, he pretty much matched the record, a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So that thing's got some potential.
Yeah, I mean, those things, I think they get very light.
Yeah.
Like that car, there's not much to them.
And that's the good thing with us, because like, it has to weigh 2,400, but he can put the weight where he wants. Mm-hmm. And with our weight bias, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, I know you've talked about with yours, it's like weight bias isn't everything with your car, but ours, it's everything. Mm-hmm. If you can make it 96% front weight, you're going to go faster.
That's so crazy.
Like
that's so much weight.
Every little bit you can do, it will help you.
Yeah. That's so much weight in the front.
And that's the other thing, like shutting our cars down. That's the biggest thing. Like that's, running down the track, shifting the gears, all that's fine. Like where most of the mayhem happens with ours is shutdown. Like if you notice, most of the X front wheel drive wrecks are shutdown. Mm-hmm. It's because they turn into wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
So like shutdown procedure on our cars are a lot different than most stuff. Like if you let off the throttle, the back tires come off the ground. You push the clutch, the back tires come off the ground. So you can't just drive into the chute and let off the gas because then it just turns into a kite. Just picks it up. So like that's how come a lot of us have done active aero. Damon and Nicole did that a long time ago, and it stabilized her car a lot. My car, I felt like I was gonna wreck it on the shutdown every time for a year. And then we put it on mine.
The flaps that come up like very NASCAR-esque flaps.
Mine's just a plate on the wing, and it just comes up,
just to push the ass
inch and a half.
I mean, it probably creates hundreds of pounds of downforce back there.
Double the weight of the back of your car.
Yeah.
And so like now, like my car's been 196, 197 a few times, and it feels completely stable.
That's pretty cool.
Whereas before, even going in the 180s, it was sketchy.
Well,
you push the clutch and it was just in the air, so you just wait.
Yeah, you're just hoping.
And it touches the ground, and then you can throw the chute.
You're kind of still steering.
Yeah, but it's a wheelbarrow, so you don't have much control. You're just kind of along for the ride right then.
Yeah, that's sketchy. I've definitely seen way more. Even World Cup, the night where they were trying to get one more qualifier, both cars, I think, wrecked on the top end.
Yeah.
On that one pass.
Yeah.
Kind of feel bad. I don't know who they were or anything, but I know both cars got wadded up on the top end. They probably shouldn't have prepped as heavily as they did. I think that probably might play into it a little bit. You could probably touch on that a little more, but watching them spray to the quarter-mile cone and back before front-wheel drive goes up seems a little counterintuitive.
Sometimes. Sometimes it can be.
Especially because I thought the whole point was they wanted like a crappy starting line.
And it's a mix. Like, so that's I touch on it a lot, the West Coast versus East Coast. Like, there's a big difference. Like, out on the West Coast, we don't have as many tracks, and the tracks aren't we aren't as radial prep or very big prep out there. Mm-hmm. So the testing we get out there doesn't work down here at Bradenton, doesn't work everywhere. Like, it's still a lot totally different.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just depends on how your tuner and your car, how you can adapt, A lot of these guys, they can get their stuff down that really, really glued up stuff. But a lot of us sometimes have problems with it.
Well, that's why I was surprised to see Victor's car bog, because he's only ever tested in flypaper track.
Yeah.
But once the air was that good, I figured it'd make more power and it would get out of its own way a little bit.
And they might have predicted that,
Yeah, so they took some out.
And that's the other big thing. Like, we have to kind of take risks in our class because of our class. Mm-hmm. Because we're the short end of the stick. Like, honestly, I feel like it kind of hurts our reputation with qualifying. Like, we're always the first ones to lose qualifying. So then we all each one matters so much that we don't have a chance to, like what I tried doing at FL2K. I tried turning it down, getting a handle on it, you know, doing a systems check for a pass, and then ease it up on the next one. Ease it up on the next one. We got 2 qualifiers all weekend. You know, at World Cup, we used to have 5. Then we got 4, and then we were down to 3. You know, it kind of, you got 45 cars going for 32 spots, and it's pretty tight. You kind of got to swing at it.
They will have to do something in that event.
Oh, yeah.
Not just for you guys, but just in general to...
I think they did a really great job with moving the 32 car fields to doing 1 round of eliminations on Saturday.
Yes.
That totally solved Sunday.
Yep.
Like we were done at 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. That was the best feeling ever.
I was home by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Actually. On Sunday.
Yeah. That was the best feeling ever, is that race was done. Everybody wasn't stressed. It was before the dew started setting in or anything.
Yeah, because that's when it does get scary. It always seems Sunday, the dew sets in.
Yeah.
Always on Sunday. Thursday, Friday, fine.
Yeah.
Saturday is not
Sunday.
bad. But then Sunday, just like all of a sudden
9
ramps
o'clock,
up.
like 9, 10 o'clock.
Every
bad.
Sunday. And there's been a couple times where a wreck on Sunday has ended the event.
Yeah.
Or on Saturday, you know, like there was a wreck that ended the day Saturday. And it's just... What do you do?
This is the qualifying ladder. We'll see you Sunday.
Yeah, that's tough. Even there's a couple classes that could run earlier just to make it even faster.
Yeah.
But again, you want qualifiers, but at the same time,
yeah, it's a catch-22. Like me, my big thing I'm gonna test more. I'm not gonna go to the events until I'm tested and I'm confident in it.
Yeah.
You know, we were great for a year. We didn't break anything. Like, we were doing good. We had, you know, a good 20.80 passes, you know, the 7.81s, you know, same engine, just servicing it on our normal service schedule. And then we ended up breaking that motor, just, you know, kind of found a weak link on something. Then we tried duplicating it, but those parts weren't available. So we got something else, and we found, well, it didn't really work. It was throwing a harmonic through the motor, caused a lot of problems, you know?
Yeah, that stuff can tear up a motor. Just some weird, and you can hear it when a motor's not happy.
Yeah.
Like, you can.
Oh, and you hear it when you're doing 180 something too.
Yeah.
Like oh crap, this isn't good. But
you can hear it like in a burnout when somebody's trying to get up on the burnout or do like on the 2-step, you're like, something is not... And tinging right there.
The first 2 engines that we took out at World Cup, the one that we just took out, it didn't break, it didn't blow up.
Yeah.
We took that one out. I could just feel it wasn't making power. It was funky. And then check the oil pressure right away. Okay, get it out. The match motor, it just felt like a dog. It sounded funny, it had issues. Like, okay, get rid of that. The other one, the one that disintegrated, it sounded and felt great until it didn't.
Yeah.
That one was living a happy life until that one moment.
A lot of the times they do.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're peak efficiency right before they're not.
That's when you know they're going to go.
Yeah, exactly. Right when everything's running great.
Yeah.
Well, like I was happy to see Kyle pull that motor because, you know, the billet block's a big deal. It's not something like, oh, you know, like it's got some crankcase pressure. It's got more than it had 2 days ago and more than it had 3 days ago. But it's like, keep sending it. No, that's a good deal to be like, let's pull this out.
And what's nice is he had the cast motor. They tested on the cast motor. They had faith in it. So it was, okay, we have faith in this. This has an issue. Let's not tear it up. You know, and that's kind of how I felt with pulling that first engine. It's been in the car. It's been working. Now it's kind of showing me some signs I don't like it. Let's just preventatively take it out.
Yep.
And
found
the problems.
You know, my buddy Sean Madden with the white C6, he ended up burning up the cylinder head in his billet block, and then he put the cast block in that was his, like, tested
old trusty.
That kicked a rod out the side of the block on that one.
Yep.
Very tough break. I think the other flip side of World Cup is you really need to put all of it in every pass. And that's why things break, too, because the rules are so tight that if you're not everything in every pass, you're losing.
Yeah.
You are going to lose, especially with like
100%.
if you have like a wild street car.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're not wringing that motor out, you are not going to win.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes the 2Js and the K series and stuff can't run with like a Coyote that can wring it out every pass and still make it to the next round.
Because by the time you're getting down through eliminations, you're like, man, we only got 35, 40 minutes before they call us back up.
Yeah.
We can't lean on this motor because we don't got time to change it.
Yep.
We don't got time to preventatively change the head or do our maintenance that we needed to do on this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of from what I've seen, the Honda guys are really getting into the maintenance of like, not just like an oil change, like cylinder head off, checking the valves, like.
So World Cup
like Eagle style maintenance.
Yeah, like this World Cup was the first time we've had to change an engine at the track. Like, people see us breaking stuff, and they're, damn, they've broken a lot of stuff. Like, we've broken a lot of stuff, but that's kind of a thing with our class. Like, everybody's, like, my motor that disintegrated the block, that's happened before, just not as much on the internet.
Yep.
You know? And that's the thing, like, I don't even remember where I was going with that now.
Well, like, you're going to break stuff. I saw Don at Accelerated Performance comment this to somebody where they were like, oh, man, that Super keeps breaking motors. And he goes, it's going to break a motor again, and it's going to break another one, and it's going to break another one.
It's going to keep breaking them.
Yes, like, it's going to keep breaking them. He was like, I'm not going to pretend it's not going to, because what we're trying to do, go low sixes with a 2J, it's going to break more.
You're going to break it.
I'm just going to keep breaking them. And LS guys know that more than anyone.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to break. Guess what? But you have to honestly have motors that are serviceable, because if you can't put a sleeve in your motor or something like that at the track and you're trying to lean on them that hard, you're going to have a bad time. Like Eagle is such a great example of a serviceable deal.
Yep.
It is designed to, the rods come out every 14 passes or 20 passes.
That's where I was going with my conversation earlier. That's something that we had done with our program. I have a spreadsheet, how many passes each part has on it. You know, a date of we get to this check mark, we need to change this. You know, I have a stack of the old rods that have 15 to 17 passes on them, and they're just sitting on a shelf. Still look brand new. I sell those off a lot of times to the guys that are making 700-800 horsepower, but they don't need to be in something like what we're trying to lean on. You know, everything down to, you know, cylinder head stuff, the keepers and the retainers on the springs. You know, we have a schedule of when those get changed, when the exhaust valves get changed, you know.
Well, the more you pull out a motor and look at it, the less likely it is to self-eat itself.
Yeah. Like we even have how many, because we put rod bearings in a lot just because that's part of our inspection. Like, hey, how's this stuff lasting? The rod bolts, we don't even torque them more than twice. Like, we'll torque them the first time we put the engine together, and then I'll change bearings once.
Are you using like stock rod bolts or ARP?
No, they're ARPs.
So you still only torque those?
Still only torque those twice.
What if they're like studs? Would you torque them more, or is it just like two times?
That's just one of those things. It's cheap insurance. That's how I'm looking at it. It's cheap insurance. It's just like the rods, you know. They came up with that equation somehow, you know.
Yeah.
There was guys that went 19 passes and were hucking rods out of them. So, okay, guys, 15 passes. You know, just like, it was, how many times have you torqued those? Well, they've stretched. I've torqued them too many times, you know. Just stuff like that, just preventative stuff. A lot of that stuff's cheaper than the whole engine.
Well, like the first time I ever had like my Power Glide and really had it gone through, the transmission guy's like, oh yeah, when I used to race like a lot, you wouldn't believe how many times I was pulling my transmission apart in the pits. He's like, every night, every other pass, every 2 passes, if we had some time, like that whole transmission was coming back apart, and I was checking everything.
Yeah.
And once with a transmission, like a Power Glide, once you're good at it, those guys are like...
Yeah, they fly through them.
It's crazy to watch. It's like, whoa,
yeah.
slow.
Our buddy Rob is quick with those. I love watching him do it.
It's weird to see, because you're like, how are you doing this fast? It's like wizardry. Because an engine's like, you know, seeing like a bottom end of an engine, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Seeing the inners of a Power Glide does not make sense, no matter how many times I see it.
Yeah,
Just physically, like, is not... computes.
It doesn't make sense.
No, something is weird there. Some wizardry is going on.
I'm a manual guy, so that makes sense to me.
It makes sense. It goes to the next gear. It makes complete sense. Power Glides They're weird.
Yeah.
Any automatic.
Yeah, they are. I put that auto in my Neon, and that thing was weird. I love driving it. That thing's a blast. But it's weird to work on, and I had to work on that a lot.
I watched it. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there on that
There's
race week.
Probably still an oil stain in the pits at Vandermeer from that.
That one hotel in Pueblo, too, probably has an oil stain.
I think every hotel from that week.
That's true.
I think every hotel.
Every...
And the way from Pueblo all the way back to Vandermeer.
Oh, yeah, because it was leaking.
There was a trail. I think I spent $1,000 on oil just to get back to the track that day.
Determination. That's that race week mentality of, this is just what it is.
This is my life this week.
It's going to suck, but guess what?
I had, that night in Pueblo, I had a breaking point. I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to load it up, have the wife bring trailer tomorrow. And Brent pulled me aside and he sat me down. And you know Brent, just happiest dude around. Jamie, this is one more day in your life. One more day and then you can sleep for a week. I'll give you a week off. Just one more day.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, you make it sound so easy. And one more day. Oh, all right, cool. Let's keep working.
So he's riding Passenger and Leroy.
Yeah.
And then they're working their ass off on that thing, breaking torque tubes and bullshit that they used to do on that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a rough one for... I just spectated the roughness. I was in a nice, cushy Mustang, this GT 500. But, you know, as a spectator, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to witness.
Yeah, guys, can we go to the hotel? I wanted a steak tonight. Are we going to make it to dinner?
Guys, like, let's try to get out of Pueblo here. Let's try to move along.
Yeah, I want to get to Vandermeer.
That car was the best in, like, the... whatever was going to Kearney, that road.
Oh, yeah.
And coming back, where it's just nothing.
Yeah, just emptiness.
Yes, and some storms.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have to really worry about the storms either, so that was nice. But
you weren't open to the elements.
Turns out it's actually nice to have doors.
Yeah, doors.
Yeah.
Roof.
Who would have thought?
I don't know.
It's like 150 years of car development. They've all had doors. Who would have thought? For the most part.
For the most part, they have doors.
So
even how did Jeeps have half doors?
They still have doors. Yeah, you got something. You can still get a door.
Yep.
So how did you and Brent meet? Because I know it's a funny story because you've told me that you didn't like him.
So me and him actually didn't get along just because of like mutual friends. And then I used to run heavy equipment. I worked pipeline. And then, so I'd worked for like 6-8 months. And
In Colorado still?
Yeah, Colorado, kind of all over. And so I'd work 6 months, then take, 3, 4, 5 months off. And then, I got to the point where I was just sick of it. And I was like, I need to put my car together. And so I went to Brent and I'm like, hey, I need a little work done. He's like, all right. So he did the work. And that was our first like actual working together on something. And then one of my buddies wanted me and Brent to fix his car. He was the one that was kind of always trying to get me and Brent to...
What was the car at the time?
It was a Prelude.
Oh, okay.
The car is still around. It is sitting on Shane's lift right now. So that buddy of mine was really good buddies with Brent. And he was like, dude, you guys don't hate each other. He had friends that hated you and you had friends that hated him. Just come get my car and you two fix it.
Yeah.
And so me and him fixed that car, put that car together, and it was just over from there. I never went back to pipelining, and I just never left the shop.
So you just... Was that the original Boosted Boys? Not Boosted Boys, but the original videos where Kyle was at?
No, this was before that.
Okay.
So Kyle, it was actually funny. Kyle ended up with Brent's cell phone number because we tuned his car. He kept calling. I need to tune. Like, he was asking questions and all these questions, and then I need to tune. And so Brent finally scheduled him for a tune and just tuned his car. Like, didn't really know anything. It was like the beginning of Kyle's YouTube stuff. Like, we weren't into watching YouTube or anything.
Yeah, like, who's this kid with a Honda, like, just tune his car?
Yeah, like, we were going out to the, cruising on the weekends and a little bit of street racing. And
Kyle was probably 17 at the time, but looked 13.
Yeah, we weren't watching YouTube. And then everybody at the meets, like, that was coming to the shop and getting their cars tuned, they're like, man, this little red hatch is just whipping on everybody. It's whipping on all of us. And he's got PFI sticker on it. Who's this Kyle guy? Who's this guy with this red hatch? And he just kept coming back. And he was just bugging Brent, asking him questions. And Brent's like, who is this kid? And then it just kind of fell into how it is.
Yeah, that's funny because I've always heard, like, yeah, he just kind of kept hanging around with Brett and kept filming the cars that were at the shop.
Yeah. And he was like, you didn't even notice it at first. Like, it was just, he was there, like he was a magician. He was there, and he'd just be gone.
That's funny.
And then somebody'd post a video, and we'd be like, wait, who filmed that? What was that? It was just Kyle hanging out in a corner.
Yeah, filming everything that came across the dyno.
And then then it turned into something fun. Like, it kind of lit a fire under Brent and me. Like, it was just, it made it all more fun again.
Well, so before that, I guess, was the shop still just all like performance oriented stuff? Or was it also like a service shop?
When I came in, it was performance and just kind of like, he wasn't doing a whole lot. Like, it was like he had his list of clientele and he wasn't racing or anything at the time. Like, he had his race cars pushed aside and just doing customer stuff. And so I went, the Bully, like, that was the first thing I did for him after we got done with that car and a couple others. I just went up to his house and stole it and brought it down to the shop. And I was like, I'm going to put this together. And he's like, whatever, go for it. He's like, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So we put it together. And then our buddy convinced us to go race it in Vegas. So then we drug it to Vegas. And that's when we just kind of started getting back into racing and traveling and stuff, you know?
So the Bully at that time, too, was, I mean, it's gone through so many iterations.
That was the F series. So that was the 4-cylinder with the glide.
Okay.
So that was after the V-drive
Was it turbo on it?
Yep.
Because I thought it had a centrifugal on it at some point.
Nope. It's always had a turbo.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen so many different photos of that thing, like, looking
So originally it was a V-drive. So the engine was backwards, had the glide, and a V-drive back to a diff, back to like a 9-inch to the axles.
Who was engineering all this?
Brent.
He was like...
Yeah. I mean, if you met him, he just flows with these ideas.
I get it, but like man,
he's not in the box. Like, his whole theory was pro front cars, the transmissions were expensive. You know, like what Bergen Holtz and all them were racing. Like, those transmissions were expensive.
Yeah.
They're running Mendiolas and all that stuff.
They were running those at NHRA.
Yeah.
Actually at like...
Yeah.
The big events, the national events.
Yeah, that point series, there was money, there was, you know, Chevy, all these guys, they had cars. Like, they were factory racing teams. Mm-hmm. You know, Toyota, Scion, like, they had teams.
Yeah.
Mazda, all of them. Like,
and there was the Bully.
Yeah. And he was, you know, he wants to figure out how to do it as cheap as possible and as reliable as possible. Glides were cheap and reliable.
He probably saw in the pits everybody was running these glides.
Yeah. So
but that's where it's so tough for me, because at the time the information was so difficult to come by. And like a V-drive and like a power glide to a Honda motor, like all of that is like, now it's easy. You can just Google it.
It's but because like, you know, you have a sand car buddy that's like, oh, yeah, you can put this C5 diff right onto a glide. We do it in buggies. And then we have our other buddy that's designing axles and stuff with Mark Williams and all this stuff, and he knows about V-drive stuff. And so then, you know, you just have those conversations with guys. Yeah. We all just stand around bullshitting about all of our ideas. So you take this guy's idea, this guy's idea, this guy's idea, and Brent turns it into one car.
And then the car was even funkier than it is now, with the hinges and the front end actually moving.
Yeah. And his whole theory with that was, and like, I understand his theory, we just never had the time or the money to develop it, was use the front sled as the car, and then the car is the wheelie bar.
Yeah, he was like a chariot, basically.
Yeah. And you know, I saw the potential in it. We just didn't have the time and the money for the R&D on where to mount the coilovers, what spring rates to put in them. You know, there's just so much involved in it. There's so much, you know, you could have 300, 330 passes in it trying to figure it out. And we just didn't have the time and money to buy 20 different springs and remount the coilovers a billion times and just make all those passes.
Well, even that too, like, you didn't have shock sensors.
Yeah.
You didn't have
like we got a shock sensor, and then we're like, okay, let's just change it.
Yeah.
Like, because by then we're like, we don't have time for it.
Yeah.
So,
of course, and there's technologies come so far on everything.
Yeah, and that's like, now we changed it once already. Now we're like, hold on. Let's just stop and let's think about how we want to do it. Because now it's like, okay, everything's caught up so much. Maybe we do it a little more like a regular car or more like the old Pro Front cars. You know, technology's changed.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few options to do that. I mean, there's a few different ways you can mount an engine in the front of a car.
Yeah.
But it's how far forward you have it. There's that potential is like very
and especially
unlimited.
With that car, because it's like it's literally nothing at the firewall forward. Like you can make it up.
Yeah.
It's literally whatever your mind can think of, you can make it.
Yeah. However you want to set that up. Like the J series came out so far past the front axles.
Yeah. So the reason it ended up with a J is because we had an F series in it out of an S2000. It wouldn't make enough torque. We couldn't get anybody to make us a decent converter for it that would work. Especially at our elevation and everything.
Well, you're moving like a 10.5W tire, whatever that thing is.
Well, you couldn't even get them up on the brake. Like we had guys making us converters, and they're like, it'll come up to 4,500 on the brake. The thing would come up to 1,200. You know, that motor at 1,200, it makes like 10 foot-pounds of torque. You know what I mean? Like nothing.
It's not going to do anything.
Yeah. How's it going to get through the converter?
Exactly, and then to try to get that tire to roll out because you need the wheel speed.
Yeah.
Even try to do a burnout with that.
Oh yeah. Well, once it did a burnout, that thing did a burnout.
Yeah, it was cool when I've seen it do a burnout, but
that's the best thing that car's ever done is burnouts. Like it was just making a burnout car. Like that thing did some sweet burnouts.
I mean, it's such a cool car. I feel like everybody always gravitates to the Bully for some reason.
If I could count how many comments on any of our videos, like nobody's seen the car in probably 2 or 3 years because it's been sitting at the body shop.
Yeah.
Still every video, there's probably 10 comments asking about it.
But everybody's always like the Bully.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah, me and Brent talk about it all the time. We're like, man, we probably got to do that. Like, we should probably do that sometime.
It'd be great to see it back out.
Yeah.
I think everybody has that same sentiment of like, we want to see it do something.
Yeah. We were actually talking yesterday. We're at a point where we're going to sit down when we get back and kind of make a list and like re-aim ourselves. Like, you know, we kind of had a rough month. We've wrecked some stuff. You know, my car, you know, the burnout car, like we need to regroup ourselves and figure out, okay, what's our next car? We need to redo our schedule on what we're doing with the cars and what's getting what done.
Yeah, it's easy to do things last minute, but you gotta kind of
and it's one of those we kind of it's hard to schedule around when you got so many projects. Like we've got, you know, because there's 4 of us at the shop. You know, me and Brent and his 2 sons. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of projects because we don't each just have one car. Like Brent's got a lifetime of project cars. I've got almost his lifetime of project cars, and then his kids have all the stuff that he didn't want that they could beg, borrow, and steal from him, and the other stuff that they started.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, like Shane's cars, it's a pretty stout setup. Like it's got a lot of potential.
Oh yeah, and he's the hardest working kid you're gonna find.
Absolutely,
he is. Every night he's done with work, and he's got a wrench on that thing or a saw on that thing, or you know, he's doing something.
Yeah, I always like seeing that thing out. I mean, they had a tough go at it.
Yeah.
Sick week, of course. Broke the control arm and then broke the control arm again, but catastrophically into the wall, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that, you know, there ain't no quitting that kid.
No.
He fixed it, and that thing, he did really good with it after he fixed it. And then he's just making the car better and better.
And he does his own content on the car, which is cool too.
Oh yeah, it's great. He keeps a fire lit under Brent too. You know, because me and Brent, you know, we just get to working and we forget cameras and we forget that, you know, and then, you know, we'll kind of miss some videos for a couple weeks and then we're like, oh man, we got to keep up with the kids.
Yeah.
Like the kids are doing good over there. We gotta do this.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get connected with Lutz? Because I've seen you with a laptop on his car.
Yeah, Clay Milliken.
Which is odd to see.
Yeah.
You know?
So Clay hit us up one day when No Prep Kings was at Bandamere. And he said, I told Jeff to call you. Bandamere Air, they're having problems spooling the car. And I know you guys have dealt with it your whole life, so you know some tricks. All right. So he texted, come to the track and help me.
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds great.
Yeah.
And pull up to the track and we find his trailer and text him, hey, we're here. It's like, I just left, trailers open, computers on the desk, figure it out. Make it work.
Sounds like Lutz.
So start looking at stuff and, okay, so we could try this. All right, let's wait for him.
Yeah.
You're not going to just go.
What's it on a Holly? Or?
No, it's on a Field Tech.
Okay.
So he comes back and, all right, so I'm Jamie. How you doing? This is Brent. How you doing? And then, here, try this. And so we just, worked with that. And then, he needed some help at a couple races that his son couldn't be at. And so.
Yeah, because normally Junior does the tuning on that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then so after Brandon Mary brought us to the shop, we, worked on some injector stuff and some other tune stuff, and then went to Arizona and tested a bunch of the changes and stuff, and then, just tried helping out.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's funny because you think of somebody like Lutz and you're like, oh, he's got his whole team. Like, he's got the tuner there with him.
These guys are just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Like, Jeff is him, his wife, and his son, and the dog. Like, they're just guys out racing just like the rest of us.
Well, all those No Prep King guys are pretty.
Yeah.
Like, they're diehard racers. I know a lot of people like, oh, it's a TV show, all this stupid stuff. But like, no, they're all racers. Like, they've been doing it for a long time.
They aren't just going to go spend all their money on cars and traveling around just to be on TV. They love doing it.
Yeah, they're trying to win.
Yeah.
That deal. And Lutz's car has been a little outgunned, I feel, in that class to begin with.
The turbo cars are definitely outgunned in that class.
Yeah.
So
the chassis seems like it could do it, but it just needs a blower.
Yeah.
It's a big PSI.
Well, and he got another car, and so that one's been working good for that.
Yeah, the gray Mustang, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think he tapped the wall with that one, though.
Yeah, they fixed that, though.
Okay, yeah.
They fixed that.
Yeah, that was unfortunate to see because it was like one of the first outings.
That was at Flying H. That was at that nice new track. I say close to us. It's 9 hours from us, but
that's close.
That's a close for us.
Yeah.
For West Coast, that's a close track.
Preston, who was just on, was like, yeah, I got a 27-hour drive home or whatever it is. I'm like,
yeah, he's 30 minutes from us.
Yeah. So 9 hours is relatively close.
Yeah.
That Flying H seems pretty awesome.
It's a great track.
That seems really cool. I hope that some drag week and sick week type of stuff makes it to that track.
So we're working on one of our events next year being there. One of the Speedfest events being there.
Are you guys trying to do like points with that?
We are. We just got to get the tracks kind of locked down and, because a lot of it's our local guys and like teaching these guys travel and trying to get some of them to travel. Like we might do like multiple races here, like at Pueblo and do a point series there and then like an overall points or something like that.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it seems like a niche that needs to be filled.
And the West Coast, like there's a lot of guys that have cars like these sitting around that there just isn't races for.
Yeah.
And they're coming back out. Like we had a group from Kansas and a group from Nebraska traveled out to these races to go race with us.
Well,
it's not like 2 or 3 cars. It's like a group of guys. They bring 6, 8 cars, a whole catering, their buddies bring, big old grills and
yeah, it's an event.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's like how the pro cars are. Like they're all sitting around. Like they're all somewhere.
Yeah, the pro front cars are still around.
Yeah, like Ron has one. Nino, I actually just saw him the other day because we've been trying to link up to talk because he's got more stories.
Oh man, that's the biggest wealth of knowledge I love talking to. Like I'll sit down with Bergenholtz and just bullshit all day. He's the best with engines. Like I can sit there and show him pictures of my engines and show him data and it's great. That's the biggest thing with Brent racing with these guys for forever. That was the best thing ever for me was getting to meet those guys and know those guys. Because those guys, they want to share all their knowledge. And they're great dudes to talk to. Like that's one thing I always tell Shane. I'm like, dude, you've got the world at your fingertips. You've got your dad and all of his knowledge, and then everybody that he's attached to that'll help you too.
Yeah.
Like Shane's going to be a maniac with building cars by the time he's his dad's age.
Absolutely. I mean, he's already so good. I can only imagine another decade of wrenching on Hondas and kid's going to have every part number for everything memorized.
Yeah, yep, him and Steven. Steven, Steven kind of worked at the shop and then he didn't work at the shop and now he's working back at the shop because he just missed it. Like he's just as good too.
That's cool. That's cool that he was able to not even force it on them, but they just want
to.
Yeah. They just want to
Steven,
work on the cars.
I'm going to go work at another job real quick. And then no, I'm coming back to the shop.
It's honestly a good idea to try other things. Like I would no problem. Like even Shane, like if he went and worked somewhere else at a dealership for a little while, just to experience it and see what it's like.
Get some other life knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's always one of the things that I wish I did more was work at more different places. I worked at a few, but like not enough. You always want to experience like see what corporate's like and then escape it.
Yeah. See, like I did that. I had like 9-to-5s. I ran heavy equipment. I did this. I did that.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I don't think I could work for someone ever again.
Well, you have your truck driving knowledge that tends to come into handy probably more than you expected it would.
I got a new truck like 2 months ago, and I've already put like over 10,000 miles on it. It's crazy.
So you have like, where was it? Your dad had a history with 18-wheelers or something?
So my dad worked for the city of Longmont. He was the service writer. He was a CDL tester for the city.
Oh.
So there's not a lot of guys that need tests, but the test changes a lot. So once a month since I was 14, my dad would give me a CDL, like full-blown CDL test. From like 14 years old to 20-something years old.
Yeah.
I took a CDL test once a month.
Jeez.
So.
Yeah, because obviously, with racing, towing is like 80% of racing.
Yeah.
You have to get there before you can even do anything.
Yeah. Man, I remember we came down and helped build Ruby. And you guys had Monica and the Toad and the Stacker.
Yep.
And we went to Orlando. We're leaving Orlando. We'd been up for like days. When we get on the highway, Garrett looks at me and he goes, "Can you drive for me so I can edit?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "Yeah, I'll let you drive." He just sets the cruise control and he stands up. "Hop on in there, buddy."
Yep.
All right, here we go.
That was how we always used to do that.
Yeah.
You could hot swap in a RV, which, maybe doesn't sound great to hear if you're thinking that the RV going down the road at 70 has a driver swap happening.
There's plenty of room for it.
It's very easy.
It was.
You could just kind of get up, and those things are made for like 90-year-old people to drive.
That's the scary part about those things.
They drive so
good,
though.
You don't need a special license for those.
Nothing.
Any senile 16 to 100-year-old can drive that. That's a little scary.
Very. And, the first time I drove it was like, all right, here you go.
Yeah. Well,
You've driven a truck, right?
Yeah, we went pulling into Adam LZ's place, and like he saw where we were, and he like takes his headphones off, and he kind of runs up there. He's like, "You good? You got 'em?" Yeah, I got it. And pulling in, and he's like, "Okay." Cooper would have been a little sketched out with this right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I got it.
Definitely would have. Yeah. He used to always kind of get on me for that. Like, why are you worrying so much? It's like, well, it's a lot of nice equipment.
Yeah.
So it's worth one of us getting out and looking if the opportunity allows.
If there's an opportunity, we should check.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if we're pulling into a gas station, it's worth a second set of eyes.
Yeah. Man, we blew a trailer tire on the way back from that, too. I think we broke everything that day.
Yes.
Because we broke Neighbor going to get Wendy's. And so I had to tow Neighbor back with Ruby.
That was like one of the few events I didn't go to.
No, you didn't. You were so busy with the merch.
Yep.
Like, that's why we got called in, because you were like, I can't help.
You
were swamped.
Adam LZ had his event, and I was just like, yeah.
You're like, I'm
not
too
going.
Busy. Sorry. So we blew up Neighbor. We blew up Ruby. Blew up the transmission in Ruby.
Yeah, 4L60.
That thing was a hurting unit.
Yes.
Blew trailer tires on the way home, and that was actually really fun because we left early. We were only there like the 2 days, and we were supposed to be there a week. We left early, and when we blew the tire, we were driving back to get the Supra to take to the shop for you. That was the Supra.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
That's why we were like, we blew everything up, and the Supra's sitting there. We can get it and go surprise Cooper.
Perfect. The MK3.
Yep.
That thing was crispy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that car. But, not all cars get the work done that you want.
Yeah.
You have to cut cars.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you have a few that you wish you would have cut earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of one of those deals, get out before you're too far in.
Yeah.
But that was such a crazy ass deal. And Garrett was actually really smart on Ruby because instead of sending the transmission to RPM to get a built 4L60, he goes just like, nah, we'll just put a power glide in it.
Yep.
That was a good move because there was a little debate there of like, oh, do you put the 4L60 in it because it's kind of cool having overdrive and all that? But it's like, nah. Toss it out. Just get rid of it.
It's going to go beyond that real quick.
And it did very quickly. Yeah. And the Power Glide was way cooler than a 4L60 because it does sound cool having overdrive, having like you could shift the gears or whatever, all kinds of cool stuff.
But then the maintenance of it and dealing with it and the price of it, just get a Glide.
Yeah, exactly. Now they even have like some 400 options for those.
Yeah.
That seems really nice option.
Yeah.
I would definitely a Corvette with like I don't like Corvettes to begin with though. I don't like the location wise of the transmission. I don't like
being
torque
in
tubes.
the back. Yeah, torque tubes just seem weird to me.
It's stupid. Yeah, I get it for weight bias, but for a drag car, they're dumb.
That's what I love when they moved the transmission on Leroy.
Yes.
Like that's when that car became my favorite.
The correct location.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It turned into a real car to me then.
Exactly.
Even though it has no body or anything, it became a real car then.
Mm-hmm. It's even interesting with like Leroy and stick shift. In like the B class of stick shift, some of these Hondas could fit in pretty easily. I mean, all-wheel drive ones fit in very easily, but even some of the front-wheel drive ones without the turbo restriction rules or something like that. But you don't see it all that much.
So that's like FL2K and stuff. That's actually before my car like stepped up to X front-wheel drive. That's what I was racing. I was racing stick shift like at FL2K and, drag and drives and stuff. And man, that was so hard trying to stay right at the beginning of that second class. Because that like mid to high 8 second is like where you end up getting chomped into the 16th qualifier.
Yeah.
And then having to race Leroy or Granis or Grubworm or something like that first round.
Yep.
But that's also really cool because you still have a chance at stick shift racing.
Yeah.
And like my little Civic, I've gotten to race Granis. I've gotten to race Leroy. Like that's just cool to me.
Miles made it to the finals.
Dude.
Miles was in the finals.
So Miles, first round, we were
and
having
nothing
a
against
talk.
Miles, but it's a 740 car
Miles knows.
in a class with a car that could go 630s.
We were standing in the lanes at first round. He's like, Jamie, I'm taking a poll right now. The air's really good. Do I send it right now? Because he had a buy. He's like, do I send it right now? Because I have Granis in the morning. And like, the air's really good. I could maybe get my own personal record, but I don't want to have to work on it. And, racing Granis in the morning, like, I kind of have a chance. Like, we're like, 50-50 on our ratio on
Granis
racing each other.
Struggling a little bit with the new...
And Miles and him have raced a lot, and it's kind of 50-50.
It's always a new setup with Granis. Every time the car's out.
And I was like, bro, you just need to break the beams. Like, this is World Cup. Break the beams and move on. And so he broke the beams, and then Granis didn't make it up.
Yep.
That was so hard to sit there and watch that. Like, I was literally standing there while they were trying to start Granis' car to go up, and that was just heartbreaking.
Like, it was close. It wasn't like they didn't even leave their pit.
No,
it was like...
they were there. There was
outside
battery chargers jumping around. There was a smart car trying to push start it. Like, there was mayhem going on that had 2 minutes. Like, it was 2 minutes of mayhem trying to get it started. And you feel so helpless as a bystander. Like, you just want to help them, but you can't.
That's like where I'm like, drag and drive rules. I can't help.
You love that.
I love doing that to people.
Pulling the neon apart, and you're like, man, you want a hot dog or something? That's
drag and drive rules.
Do. I'll grab my lawn chair and I'll sit here and watch it.
Or like somebody's like cleaning up after the event. I'm like, drag and drive rules.
I'll see you at the hotel.
I always end up helping, but I just like I like to pull that as the excuse, So it's like that the card. Pull that out.
Pull the card.
Yeah, just drag and drive rules. Like when you put your motor in half and sick week.
Yeah,
no one can help as much as they want to.
Yeah,
no one can.
And that's the only 2 times I've split one, and those are actually different instances. Like, that was 2 totally different problems.
Yeah.
That one and the one that just happened.
Too much horsepower was the root of both problems, but the cause of the too much horsepower.
Yeah, it was totally different.
Yes.
And the brakes were actually opposite sides of those studs, too. So the first one, it made too much boost and the burnout, the gate stuck. Mm-hmm. It still had water between. So it blew the head gasket and pressurized the water, and it broke at the bottom of the head studs.
Yeah.
This one broke at the top of the main studs.
It turns out water doesn't compress very well.
No. So ever since then, we haven't had water in the block. Like, all my stuff's dry deck.
Oh, interesting. Do you run water through the head?
Yep, just through the head.
So it's dry. Is it welded head?
Welded head.
Welded head.
Welded head, copper head gasket.
Do you fill the block or do you just leave it?
We've done it both ways. The ones that lived longer were not filled. So I've gotten a lot of pictures sent to me since World Cup of other guys' brakes that the rest of the world doesn't see.
Yeah.
Most of the broken ones I've seen are filled. So I'm kind of thinking there might be a, connection there.
That. Well, what do you guys use? Like concrete?
Epoxy, most of us use. So like we've done concrete, like with Brent's, we did concrete one time, but it was a little porous. So when it fire slotted one time and it went through and it made it through the concrete because it was a little too porous and it cracked the block.
Interesting. So maybe not filling them is kind of the trick because it probably gives it a little bit of flex,
and
a little
then
bit of
we
movement.
leave some spots open, like the back of the water pumps. Like if somehow you get pressure in there, it still can evacuate somewhere and not just blow it to smithereens.
Yeah, so it'd be nice for it to have. You almost need like a burst panel on your
on the
crankcase. Somewhere have like a 40 psi burst panel in the crankcase might actually help. You might actually be able to save a block.
I mean, Kyle had a burst panel on his that one time at World Cup. Remember the valve cover blew apart?
Yeah, well,
that was like an unintentional burst panel.
I could not believe that the valve cover blew apart on
Neither could I. That's the first time I've seen that.
That was the weirdest thing. I don't understand how it was that fragile.
Me neither.
How it could possibly, without anything actually hitting it.
The track guy came over to yell at us because he had oiled down once before in the weekend or whatever. And the track guy came over and he's like, really again? And I was like, hold on, come look at this real quick. Tell me if you've ever seen this. I'm like, the valve cover blew apart. The engine's behind him. It still has oil pressure.
Yeah.
He doesn't know.
It's a valve cover.
Yeah, I'm like, he has no idea. That's behind him. It has oil pressure. He doesn't know that's going on back there.
Well, and if it was like, oh, it blew the gasket out, it's like, okay, maybe you tightened it wrong and you screwed up somewhere.
No, it just broke the valve.
Because like LSs do that, like they'll blow the gasket out of it. But the valve cover's wild. Yeah, I don't even understand that.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah, what kind of crankcase pressure does it take on that deal?
Yeah.
You almost... those burst panels are stupid, though, because they mostly don't burst when you need them to.
Yeah, when you need them to, they don't.
They're too
And then
strong.
they'll burst when you don't want them to.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun on that deal.
It's like safeties.
Do you still use the E-gate on that car?
No.
You took it off?
Yep. I took it off that day.
Is it just CO2 now?
Yep.
Yeah. See, I like the E-gates, but they seem to solve a problem that's not actually real.
Yeah. You just have to do a little math and have a little understanding and have some data with the CO2. Like it's pretty universal, you know your car.
Yeah.
And it's like with us, that's another big thing. Like going from, we're 6,000 to 9,000 foot DA up in Colorado, depending on the day, and coming down here, the dome pressure is a lot different actually. Mm-hmm. To make 65 pounds at home, I have to put 120, 130 pounds of dome pressure on it. Down here to make 60 some pounds, I put 30, 40 pounds of dome pressure on it.
Yep.
Back pressure plays a big role in that.
Yeah. And I get the E-gates on the concept of like Mark Mickey's Pro Mod where it simplifies the setup.
Yeah. Most of them are using them
they just
as a
feed
spool
all
valve.
the boost.
Yeah, most of them are using them as a spool valve.
That's what
not
they
on
use
the exhaust side.
But they don't put any wastegates on the exhaust side. They put nothing there
and they
just
use it as the spool valve.
But also, that motor could take whatever those turbos can put out.
Yeah.
So even if you just shut that,
yeah,
they're only using it to spool.
The hardest thing with doing that, like the one thing that they're being harder on is the turbo.
Yeah.
Because letting it all go, you're just ramping up your shaft speed for a while.
I've heard some things about the turbo companies don't like it.
Yeah.
Like,
they don't.
Please, can you just be nicer on them? Like
they don't.
Like Garrett or Precision or whoever it is, they're just like, guys, come on.
Please quit doing it.
Yeah. But Grannis's new setup, they put a throttle body as the spool valve.
A drive-by-wire throttle body.
Yeah, because it's very easy to control one of those with the Motec.
Yeah.
They said that they have way more
controlling those so good now.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more accessibility to drive-by-wire stuff anymore.
Yeah. They said they have so much more control though, because like it's linear. It just like it just works.
Does what they tell it.
Target and it just works. And it's pretty cool to see. But it's nothing new. They've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
But
I do love how much they changed that car. Like, they try a lot of stuff.
It's cool because they use Dirty Taco and that car as like two test mules for each other.
Yeah.
So they both kind of end up similar.
Yeah.
But Dirty Taco is probably 1,000 pounds lighter because
that truck's sweet.
Yeah.
There's just something about a truck.
See it lose the carbon tubs out of it? Where was it, FL2K or was it World Cup where it just the carbon tub's just gone out of the thing and there's just like flat pieces of carbon flying through the air like paper thin because, you know, Dewey, who owns that car, he's like, any dollar that could save any amount of weight, you do it type of thing.
That's Honda guy mentality.
Yeah.
Weight reduction. You don't need that bolt.
Oh, that's how I feel about my car. I take a 5-gallon bucket and I'm like, okay, I got to fill this with something from the car.
From the car.
Whether
We're
I cut
losing
it,
a 5-pound butter.
grind it, or something. You fill up the bucket and then every little bit helps.
Yeah, 5-gallon bucket of something.
Yeah. So when you go back, you going to work on the neon?
So
we're going to see a neon again?
No, the neon's going to be a street car. I just need to put it back together. Like, we fixed the transmission 3 years ago. I just haven't had time. Like, an X front-wheel drive car like mine, with how much we've been racing it, it takes all of my spare time because the service schedule, the maintenance, all of that.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of downtime. Like, I have a lot of work to do on the car. Like, it's basically rebuilding a whole car. Everything down to the parachute, the back brake lines, everything's melted. Like, the chassis is good, but the rest of the car, everything needs rebuilt.
Fix it by when? Like, when is the
I'm not
next...
even putting a deadline on it yet because it's all still kind of fresh. We'll have some stuff at the beginning of the year. The next event is actually like in 2 weeks. That was the next plan, was the Orlando Sport Compact race.
Yep.
But that's definitely off the books right now.
It sounds unlikely.
So, you know, just kind of, I'm thinking mid next season is when I want to have it done. I'm going to not put a big, huge deadline on myself because that's when I'm like, I can do that piece later. I can, you know, let's do it this way. You know, I want to just do it right.
Yep. So, I didn't know if you put like a light deadline. Like, I'd like to make...
My light deadline is mid next year.
TX2K or something.
Mid next season.
March.
I kind of want to get some testing at home before FL2K next year.
That you have plenty of time for, I hope.
Yeah.
October.
Yeah, it's just, you know, financially, it's a lot.
Sure.
So it's like, you know, just stacking stuff up. And it's the hardest part with building a car is the process on how to keep progress going. You know, I could put together an engine and everything right now, like figure out doing that. But if I spend my money on that, then the car sits stagnant because I can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
You know, just the planning and the plotting of getting it all done.
And if it needs turbo kit, fuel system,
Yeah,
wiring.
like, okay, so I send it to the body shop. I send it to get the chassis done. What pieces do I need next to be able to keep moving on the car?
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you buy a turbo before you even know what engine you're going to use.
Yeah.
You have a turbo sitting there that you can't do anything with.
I know quite a few people that just have an ECU.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, like, this is a weird first step.
Yeah.
Having an ECU.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. They're cool, but like.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, so I need to get the chassis work done first. Then I need to get, you know, body panels together. I don't necessarily need an engine together yet because I've got, you know, just dummy motors I can put in and, you know, run the wiring to and, you know, run the lines and redo all that stuff and seal up the firewall and put new bulkheads places and then take it all apart and send it to the body shop to get painted. And while it's getting painted, then I can do the motor. You know, just plotting and planning all that.
That makes sense. Have you heard if Vandermeer's got a new location yet?
So last I knew, they were finishing their due diligence on a new facility, on new land. Like they've procured the new land, but they're in the due diligence process. There's like some wetland part of the property that they're doing some stuff with city and wildlife or something like that. You know, don't quote me on that. But there's something. But if that goes through, they're saying a soft opening 2025, like no grandstands, like soft, like rough and tough, like local drag racers can do some races.
I mean, if it's got a tree and a quarter mile.
Yeah, and then 2026 be a full facility.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's got a tree, I'll bring my own beach chair. Yeah,
I'll put a
I'm
lawn
good.
chair. I don't care.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Back the trucks up. Who cares?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's plenty of
bleachers.
options.
You can get rentals. Yeah. You know, like
who cares? You got to keep it rolling. That's what the worry is. Like people start to get rid of their cars when the track's gone. You almost got
sold. You should have seen Marketplace in Colorado. Marketplace is still like that because nobody believes that the track is going to get built or anything.
Yeah,
because it's been a year. Yeah,
you know,
and it's it was kind of hard because like it was hard as a racer seeing it sit there all year, and then just get the sale closed.
Yeah,
like as a racer, you're like, man, it's still theirs. Why aren't we racing still?
Yeah, could have used it for a whole year. I know the parking lot thing was why they couldn't do NHRA, but like everyone else could have done it.
We don't need parking
you
6
don't
miles
need the
away.
Overflow parking 6 miles down the road.
We don't got that many people coming to watch imports.
Yeah, it's like there's plenty of parking even in the facility. On the top of that hill, you can fit like 1,000 cars up there. It's freaking huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, that was crazy. I love that facility.
That's the one sad thing. Like, I know they'll build a great facility. They know like what they need to improve, over the years to make a facility work. But no matter what they build, it's not going to be in the side of a mountain.
No, it's never going to be overlooking from your pits the drag strip or a downhill staging lane.
Yeah, downhill staging lane, uphill shutdown.
Yeah.
The uphill shutdown saved a bunch of people over the years, I bet.
Yeah.
Like that was the easiest track to shut anything down.
Yep. And it's even weird because you talk to somebody like Clay Milliken and he's like, oh yeah, because the air's thin. The parachutes don't parachute the same.
It doesn't do as much, yeah.
Like, that's even weird to think like, oh, the air's thin. So there's not as much wind resistance on the parachute.
Yeah.
And it slips through the air better.
Yeah. Even the aerodynamics, like your wicker on your wing, your active aero doesn't do as much.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's so weird. It's such a crazy concept. And you only really notice it in that level of things. Mm-hmm. You won't notice it as much aerodynamics-wise on a 7-second car. You'll definitely notice it on the engine side.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
You'll hear it huffing and struggling. That was some of our early experiences with you and Brent was up there with Leroy trying to get it to spool.
Yeah. And that's always the fun part, watching other racers come in, race weeks or, the no prep kings and all that stuff, even like when Clay and those guys come, everything's different on their cars, and all these other guys come in, no prep kings and them. I've never heard so many guys two-step on the trans brake in the pits that many times besides at Bandimere.
Yep.
Because you're just working for it. And what works now won't work in 20 minutes. Your DA changed by 500 feet.
Yeah, it's crazy. Such an equalizer, such a screw up people. It's so cool. But we're going to end this off, man. This was a lot of fun. Obviously, I would love to have you back on at some point because, we are close friends and we talk all the time anyways. But this was awesome, man. Where can people follow you guys at? Where can people keep up with the car? PFI Speed, YouTube?
PFI Speed, YouTube. PFI Speed, Instagram. My Instagram, Jamie at PFI Speed. So.
Yep. Okay, cool. Well, guys, go follow them there. Go check it all out. Check out the car. Buy some merch. All that good stuff. Help support the car coming back for 2025. But that will do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next time.